Bobby Manning here. Welcome to another news edition of the Garden Report. This is a new report from yesterday as we continue to follow this Kevin Durant saga into month number 2. It seems that the meeting hyped up over the last week or so here between Kevin Durant and Nets owner Joe Tsai was a reconvening of the Nets or anything that's setting up this reluctant return for next year. The Nets have the offers that they've wanted in the Durant trade market, and Durant is a deal here. So a lot of people thought this meeting between player was going to be, all right, KD, Kevin, we went through all these teams. We couldn't get a deal in with the Celtics. We couldn't get a deal done with the Raptors, Heat, whoever else. Run it back. And instead, Kevin walked into this meeting, and I'll pull up this piece here from Shams, and essentially demanded that the Nets fire Sean Marks and Steve Nash. And you know how I felt about this trade saga here. I've generally been in favor of the Celtics pursuing Kevin Durant for all the on-court reasons that this would benefit the team, that would push them closer to a championship, and then, of course, the secondary reasons with Jaylen Brown's contract and all of that we've talked about. This, however, brings me back to the slightest pause that I had on pursuing Durant, and that's all this dysfunction, all this meddling, and now clearly this latest sign that he's going to be a guy willing to go to the team with demands, with ideas and suggestions that are a little bit more than suggestions when it comes to the direction of the team. Now, I think you're always going to have that with any star in this league. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown's impact on the front office has been fairly minimal. I know they're on the earlier side of their careers, but these have not been two players who are willing to instill their own plans on the front office. Now, Durant, I think what we're looking at here is the complete opposite. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but he and Kyrie Irving as a pair, and who's more involved in this, who's less, it's tough to say, but they have not shown to make the right decisions when it comes to their own plans for the Brooklyn Nets, when it comes to the things that they've demanded of the franchise, that Sean Marks has largely been amicable to facilitating, whether it's the James Harden trade, whether it's the first move that set up this Irving and Durant era in Brooklyn, which is the signing of DeAndre Jordan and in turn the ousting of Kenny Atkinson, who it seemed the main point of contention between all three of them there was Jarrett Allen starting. And within short order, that former Nets core of Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, and of course D'Angelo Russell before them were all gone. And this becomes a veteran-led team with a coach of their choosing in Steve Nash. Now, everybody's reaction to this has been, the Nets are really going to pick Steve Nash over Kevin Durant. That's not what this is about. This is about the continuous string of changing whims of these stars on this team. The deflection of blame, which is clearly what Durant is doing here on the GM, on the coach that he in part chose and positioned, and only months ago supported after the loss to the Celtics, supported pretty emphatically, in fact, when asked whether Nash was the coach to lead this team into the future. Now, we all know Nash isn't a great coach. he struggled immensely this last season, particularly when the Nets were losing 17 of 20. I don't think he played the young guys on this roster enough, and he certainly didn't have the in-game adjustments or defensive acumen to make this team a legitimate title contender. Even going back to 2021, I thought a lot of his flaws as coach were big reasons that the Nets didn't win a championship with that Big Three roster, alongside injuries and some other things that happened. But we never heard any of this before. This, in fact, seems to me pretty similar to the push that James Harden made to get out of Houston, saying whatever it took, doing whatever it took. And in fact, just within the last hour here, we have a report from Christian Winfield that Durant's not ruling out a holdout into training camp to get out of here. Now, would all be healed once he moves, once he gets this, as Shams writes here, new change of scenery? We'll see. Now, a lot of this still comes down to the package that the Celtics and other teams would have to give up here. And as far as Shams is concerned, the Nets are still asking for any and all assets. As he writes here, every last asset from a team that trades for Durant, though Boston's package centered around Jaylen Brown is seen as viable. What does that mean? I'm not necessarily sure, but it does go back to a lot of the stuff we've talked about here in terms of the Celtics waiting this out with a fairly low level package. Now you put Jaylen Brown on the table. That's not a low ball. I'm not going to call it that, but it certainly isn't the layers and layers and layers of assets that the Nets have pursued. When you think of the Minnesota asking price that was out there, and some of these other constructs of deals that we've kicked around, you would think there would be Brown plus Smart, which the last report mentioned, plus even someone like Rob, and then picks on top of that, which to Boston should be a no-starter. Now, I'm certainly intrigued by the prospect of swapping Brown plus salary for Durant just for the basketball reasons, but that doesn't seem, as we've talked about here, likely or realistic. The Nets have Durant on a 4-year deal. They're going to bring him into training camp. Now, how sustainable is that? We'll ultimately see. But it's not surprising to me that the Celtics have kept their eye on this and kept the door open to the possibility of adding Kevin Durant just for Jaylen Brown, which I think still makes a lot of sense for both sides. But this report here, as I wrote for CLNS Media yesterday, should give the Celtics immense pause. I mean, you go through this lineage of what's happened in Brooklyn, and it has been nonstop dysfunction, nonstop bad decisions by Durant, and this seems to be the latest to me. The one before this being his willingness to roll with Kyrie Irving's denial of the vaccine mandate, setting out to start the year, and then a ill-fated part-time role that was a disaster. The Nets, I thought, got worse after Kyrie Irving became a part-time player for them, and some of these personnel moves, and certainly the coach, which he's now turning back on, do not bode well for the Celtics ceding any organizational control to a guy like that. And I kicked all around a lot of that in this piece here on CLNS Media. There's certainly still basketball reasons to pursue Durant. There's certainly leverage that Durant's generating here, along with the Ben Simmons contract, which prevents Brooklyn from trading for guys like Bam, Booker, Michael Porter. Even Andrew Wiggins is ineligible to end up on Brooklyn if the Warriors were going to pursue a deal. But you just look through this lineage here. I mean, Sean Marks has been a great GM. Joe Harris, Blake Griffin, Jeff Green, Landry Shamet, Mike James, just to name a few of his great additions that helped fill the gaps on that 2021 roster when James Harden and Kyrie Irving got hurt. They almost beat the Bucks in spite of those injuries. A big reason was a really good roster here. Now look at the roster that they're courting in spite of James Harden's trade demand. They've acquired Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, first-round picks from Philadelphia. Andre Drummond, who I forgot to include here, was a great addition last year. Patty Mills is back. Nick Claxton is back. TJ Warren arrived on a veteran minimum. They got Royce O'Neal for a first-round pick. They drafted Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe despite trading all their future picks into the future, not to mention David Duke and Kessler Edwards. I have some pause on the Durant idea at this point, but we'll talk about it later. Garden Report planned for tonight, 8 o'clock. We'll kick around the Durant latest. I'm sure there'll be developments as the afternoon goes on here, as well as some other stuff happening around the league, and it really is set up to be a busy August in the NBA. We'll have you covered throughout the month on the Garden Report, which there's no off season for. We're brought to you by Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/garden and get yourself a 1-year supply of vitamin D, as well as 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You can go there, get a subscription, and they're going to give you a great water bottle to mix it up every morning, as well as a shaker container. Green theme, great packaging, and great taste in this product. Listen, AG1, digestion, energy, simplicity. These are all the things to love about it, along with a great taste. It's basically a powder full of nutrients, vitamins, probiotics, antigens, everything you need for your health. All these things collectively could cost you $100 a day. It all comes in one powder, simple, pour it in your water, mix it up, drink it, and you're setting a good tone for your health, which along with, exercise, diet, all that other stuff, it's going to make you the best version of yourself. So support the Garden Report, support Athletic Greens, and you'll get 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. These travel packs are great. Just rip them open, pour them in that bottle, and you're good to go. Again, tropical flavor. People love it. Don't trust me. Trust the reviews. Go wherever they sell it and just look at what people say about Athletic Greens. It's overwhelmingly positive. People love this stuff. My mom's been taking it, my uncle, as well as myself, and we've become hooked over the last month or so here. So athleticgreens.com/garden. Go get this deal. Go support the Garden Report. This has been news edition of the Garden Report. Kevin Durant demanding the firing of Sean Marks and Steve Nash to stay in Brooklyn. Are we on the verge of a Durant deal? Sure seems like it. Maybe not within coming weeks, but at least by training camp, which is looming at the end of September here.